Thank you all for making the time to join us on today's webinar. My name is Natalie Taylor, and I'm a content manager here at Feedvisor. I'm joined by Cynthia Stein, founder of eGrowth Partners and seasoned expert on reinstatements, infringement solutions, and a number of other issues that Amazon sellers are faced with today. Before we get started, hey Cynthia. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that we will be sending out a link to today's recording, and there will be time for a Q&A at the end. So if you have questions throughout the presentation, we encourage you to enter them into the space that's provided, and we'll do our best to get to all of them. Nearly half of brands on Amazon cite defense against counterfeits, map violators, and unauthorized sellers as one of their top challenges associated with operating on the marketplace. For brands, fake goods and illegitimate sellers increase the likelihood of a poor shopping experience, threatening your hard-earned brand equity, reputation, and consumer trust. Amazon has launched a number of initiatives in recent years to help brands protect their business against counterfeits. And in 2019, the company said it had invested over $500 million to fight fraud in its marketplace. And this helped block over 2.5 million suspected bad actors. And in June of this year, Amazon announced its latest effort, a new counterfeit crimes unit made up of former federal prosecutors, investigators, and data analysts to help crack down on counterfeit goods. And while efforts like these are welcome news for brands and they serve as another level of protection to guard your intellectual property, there are still proactive measures that you must take yourself to safeguard your brand name. So today, Cynthia will be discussing different approaches brands can take to effectively combat counterfeits and remove unauthorized sellers while also remaining compliant with Amazon's policies. And so this includes the pros and cons of Amazon's latest initiatives and programs designed to address counterfeits and infringement problems, how to safely enforce your rights as a brand within Amazon's ecosystem, a look into the legal ramifications of Amazon's brand registry and the potential impact it has on new sellers' businesses' identities, and the bespoke brand checklist that you need to review before you take enforcement action on Amazon. So on that note, Cynthia, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm the president and owner of eGrowth Partners, and our company helps Amazon sellers with a wide range of problems, certainly getting their accounts and their ASINs reinstated, but also just a host of other problems because there just are a lot of other problems. And ever since brand registry was launched a few years ago, there's just been a tremendous amount of infringement suspensions, but also, brands using the tool to take care of their rights, and it's largely been a mess. And so part of what I want to cover today is definitely what you can do to help navigate this, because you do get, as a brand, a lot of conflicting messages from Amazon. But anyway, to finish up about me, so we have been consulting with Amazon sellers. I started off as an Amazon seller, and I wrote a book in 2015 called Suspension Prevention that was a bestseller and has won 2 international book awards and is also published in Mandarin. So the issue of making things work on Amazon is huge. And as you all know, Amazon is not particularly chatty with its sellers. And so that's what I help people navigate, that my team helps. So let's look at what's at stake. Because, when we think about counterfeit, sometimes we don't realize really what's at stake. Uh-oh. I'm not able to make it move forward, Natalie. Okay, this works. Sorry, guys. It worked yesterday in rehearsal perfectly. Okay, so what's at stake? Counterfeits cost everyone. Of course, the brands, but they cost everyone. And, the true amount that they cost brands is staggering. We're looking at over $1 trillion. And, they were projected to reach 1.8 trillion in 2020. And actually, I think it's going to be more than that when they do the numbers. And the losses due to counterfeiting of just high-end consumer goods. So a lot of other things are counterfeited too. But just the high-end consumer goods part of the marketplace, $98 billion. And, basically they're saying that trade in counterfeit and pirated goods now stands at 3.3% of the global trade. And of course, with the rise of e-commerce, the problem of counterfeit trafficking has intensified because e-commerce actually makes it easier. And the U.S. Customs and Border Control people basically said that in the last 8 years, their amount of goods that they've seized at the ports for counterfeit has increased tenfold, from about 3,000 a year to almost 34,000 seizures a year. And not surprising to anyone here, over 85% arrived from China and Hong Kong. And when we look at the platform itself, bad actors, like I said, spoil everything. But again, because e-commerce does make things easier, and because so much of it can be done, from miles away, online, using technology, one bad actor can take down long-established brands and trash their sales on Amazon in a few weeks. And one rogue seller, so they're not selling counterfeits necessarily, but one rogue seller selling expired goods or cheap liquidation products can trash your brand in a month or two on Amazon as people complain about poor product quality. And frankly, Amazon makes it way too easy to destroy your competitors if you know how. Amazon itself sells counterfeits, and it is hard to make them stop. Literally, I've had clients where Amazon was selling counterfeits of their goods, and it was a difficult struggle to get them to stop doing that, because nothing is easy on Amazon if you're a seller. Nothing. So they do have, and some of you may be familiar with these programs. So Amazon is trying to, because everything they have to do is on a large scale, right? So they have set up some programs which have had effectiveness against stopping some counterfeit. I would say their number one program that they have to stop bad actors from getting on the platform is verification. They have made it extremely tough. It's very effective. It makes it almost impossible to fool Amazon, and they're linking you to a public location. And until they stopped it recently, they were also taking pictures of people's faces so that they could tie a face to an ID to a location. And they're going to continue to do that, and they're going to continue to make it harder. And this year, they've started going back to all of those accounts that were grandfathered, that older, they've been on the platform longer, were not originally asked to verify themselves. They're now going back and asking sellers to get verified. And it's actually, it's a very good program, although the con is there are a lot of false rejections. So there are people who get rejected, the seller has no idea why, and they are an honest player, but maybe their paperwork wasn't perfect. They didn't understand what Amazon was asking for, things like that, and they get rejected. So not everybody who gets rejected is a bad actor, although Amazon claims credit for all of their rejections as if they were all counterfeits. So that's the con of the program, but it's actually a pretty good program, especially if you can get verified. And I see that will make a difference over time as to how many bad actors are on the platform. The transparency program, this is one, Transparency Project Zero. Project Zero is kind of the combination of programs. And, you know, and it's very much a multi-step approach. So you can take the steps that make the most sense to you. And for people who are outright having counterfeit problems, definitely transparency is helpful because it puts a unique barcode on each product that you sell anywhere in the world, such that you can scan that product and you know instantly everything about it, and you know that it's authentic, that it came from the manufacturer, that it is not counterfeit. It's a very good program. A lot of brands, though, are leery of it for two reasons. One, because it is somewhat expensive. It's usually a few cents a package, and which, you know, adds up if you're selling a lot of packages, because they also insist that you do it worldwide. So it's not just for your packages that go to Amazon. This would be for every item you sell around the world. And so for that reason, a lot of brands have not signed up for the program. But those who have found it to make an instant difference, instantaneously. Nobody can list or sell your product unless they have those unique barcodes. And those barcodes cannot be faked, and they are all sequential. And Amazon already has all your numbers. So, I mean, immediately they can scan something and know if it's fake or not. That is a really good program, like I said, but it's also expensive. And so for brands, they have to weigh the cost of the counterfeits against the cost of implementing counterfeit protection. And then another thing that Amazon does for their brands is they are proactively sending out suspected infringement complaints to sellers. So they've created an algorithm that, especially with brands that maybe have a high possibility of counterfeit. They don't share exactly what's in the algorithm, right? But these are ones that they have deemed could be counterfeit and or inauthentic. And so they send out the notice, and then you're supposed to provide, as a seller, you're supposed to provide invoices and or receipts. And if they show, you know, that you bought it from a legitimate source, then, you know, you just move on. So that's been a pretty good program, but there are just a ton of false positives. It is also a nightmare for some of my clients who sell a lot of products, because they may have dozens of these on their account that they're having to deal with at any given time and provide invoices for. It becomes very time consuming. But from the brand's perspective, it is helpful because Amazon is proactively out there looking for potential infringement and hopefully catching it before it becomes, before it really gets established. But I think that any brand on the platform will tell you that despite all the different measures that Amazon is taking and the new ones that they just announced in June, like Natalie referenced, despite all of those, it's not enough. And there's just too much going on, frankly, and it's just not enough. Okay. Okay. So I'd be curious to know what people's biggest challenges on Amazon when dealing with, bad actors. Are you dealing with, are you dealing with people who are doing, unauthorized sellers, MAP violators, counterfeits and knockoffs and trademark infringement, listing hijackers? I'd like to know just kind of what you guys are facing today, because I'll make sure the rest of my presentation, covers what you guys got going on. And I guess I'll go ahead and keep moving ahead while you guys take the poll. Come on. Okay, so so we can see very quickly, 64% of you are having issues with unauthorized sellers and MAP violators. This has been my experience too. So what we've seen with our client base, let me just, oops. Okay. Okay, so what does Amazon think about unauthorized sellers. Basically, as far as Amazon's concerned, it's your problem, unless they are selling inauthentic or counterfeit goods, or they're violating trademark, or they're selling expired or poor quality goods, because of course that affects the buyer experience, and unless you can prove a violation. So, and they certainly don't care about MAP. And in fact, they will not allow their tools to be used to enforce MAP, and they don't care that, you know, that people on Amazon are just trashing your brand by selling your products at ridiculous prices. You know, maybe only making a few cents per unit. We've seen that, it's crazy, and totally devaluing the brand. And, you know, they don't care because this is your problem. Oh, so a lot of people, because it's coming up on September 1st, have been very interested in Amazon's new name reveal policy. So on the U.S. platform, sellers, you know, names and addresses and business names and addresses are going to be displayed to anyone. And I predict immediately that it's going to be a mess, or as I put it, a cluster. And while transparency is good, it kind of depends on which side of the arrangement you're on, right? So the opportunities for abuse are boundless. I can't wait to see how this shakes out, because like I said, I just see a huge mess coming our way. It will help brands pursue off-platform cease and desist actions and lawsuits. This is good for Amazon because, again, they don't want to be the middleman or the arbiter between brands and sellers. And also because every day they have to deal with subpoenas from brands in order to get seller names. And now they don't have to worry about that. So that is, it all benefits Amazon quite a bit. But for sellers, again, it's kind of a mess, because who knows what kind of, you know, action that brands are going to do off platform, right? And, you know, obviously a lot of people really don't want to be found for whatever reason. I mean, some work out of their homes, you know, they don't want angry buyers showing up demanding a refund, you know, but some also have more nefarious purposes. So I'll be curious to see how this policy affects bad actors on the platform and affects Amazon's ability to get rid of bad actors. And also what I want to tell people that they may not know, because Amazon, of course, creates brand registry, says, here's these great tools, make your pretty pages, take down people who are infringing on your trademark, have fun, right? And they basically just turned over the tool without any kind of discussion of when is a good time to use the tool. And so what's been happening lately is, you know, recent case law has brands losing as angry sellers sue them for taking them down, getting them kicked off the platform sometimes, and basically making false claims. And so what brands are waking up to, but not everyone realizes it yet, is you just because Amazon gives you a tool does not mean it's legal to use it. And absolutely there were brands who abused this tool. They would just take everyone off their listings for infringement, and you know, even people who were authorized, even people who were buying directly from the brand were being taken off the platform. And then, of course, as you know, Amazon would suspend them depending on, you know, the level of their account status. Sometimes they would just lose the ASIN, sometimes they'd lose their account, and it would create real hardship for the sellers. And then, of course, from the sellers, they would have a very difficult time getting back, because Amazon would say, hey, you have to get a retraction from the brand. And the brand would say, well, no, I'm not going to retract this. I don't want you on my listings, right? So what's been happening now is that some sellers have fought back and they have won against false claims. And I just want everyone to realize, as a brand owner, that false claims for IP infringement are serious in the real world, right? It's not an Amazon thing. This is a legal thing. And it is serious, and there are damages and consequences if you lose your case. So obviously you don't want to get sued, right? You don't want to break the law, but you do want to control who can sell your product and to make sure that the quality of your product is consistent across all your channels. And we're going to talk more about that, obviously. But basically, brands need to be smarter, because when they came, like I said, they came and Amazon gave them brand registry, some of them went bananas. And now they're facing real consequences for their actions. But they also did some real damage, which was not fair to the honest sellers who had bought their goods at legitimate sources. So here's what's possible. How to legally enforce your rights. Well, what we suggest is that you verify first. What you want to do as a brand, obviously, is you want to identify the sellers. We know that when you look at your look at all the people on your listings, you have no idea who they are. You know, it's, you know, Great Deals USA, right? Who the heck are they, right? And so you don't know who they are. And sometimes they actually are someone that you know. They buy from you directly, but under another name, right? So we always tell our clients the best way to do this to keep yourself out of trouble with the law and with Amazon is to try and verify first, right? Reach out to these sellers and try and find out where they're buying their goods. Because again, if they say to you, oh, well, you know, hi, you know me, I buy from you all the time, then, you know, or I buy from your distributor X, then they're allowed to sell on the platform and you should not pursue any action against them. Identify the sellers is about to become a whole lot easier, obviously, as of September 1st, because then you can go and look for yourself. Where are they located? You can send them cease and desist letters. And Amazon would prefer you to take any kind of legal action or any action off platform, especially if what you're talking about is more about maybe inauthentic goods or, you know, unauthorized sellers. Now, obviously, if you're talking about counterfeit and they really are counterfeit, you can take them down through brand registry. That is what it's for. But for others, you know, it is sometimes better, and it's certainly preferred by Amazon, if you send them a cease and desist off platform and deal with it that way. So I kind of put together this enforcement checklist. This is kind of what sellers are having, or brands, you know, seller brands are having to do today to deal with these issues. So with like I said, with a counterfeit or a knockoff, or someone who is violating your patent, you know, you can definitely do it through the platform. And of course, the trick is always first, you have to identify who they are. And depending on the program that Amazon offers, you can send them information. Like if you have someone who's violating your patent, for example, your utility patent, they have a mediation process, and they'll manage the communications between you and the other guy. If it's a design patent, they won't do that. So that's a case where you have to provide proof of the design patent to Amazon, and they'll take them down for you. But you can do the communications, you know, basically through brand registry, just not through the tool. And then basically whenever you start getting the names, you want to exclude authorized sellers. And sometimes you do have to do test buys, because, you know, you need to make sure that they really are selling counterfeit or knockoff. Usually the reason you think that they are is because buyers have complained, right? You're starting to get bad reviews. You know that that's not your product. Sometimes you can just get a picture, you know, from the buyer, and that can help you. Legally, as a brand, you do not have to do test buys in order to get to pursue, you know, counterfeit complaints against bad actors. But when you're dealing with Amazon, you are making a statement to them that you have done test buys when you do a takedown through the brand registry tool. So you have to decide how you want to do this. And if it's only a few bad actors, okay, doing a test buy is not a big deal. But I have clients who have hundreds of listings with thousands of sellers on them. And so that's going to be pretty expensive. And I will talk in a minute about how we address that. And then, you know, basically you can take them down through brand registry. You can also send cease and desist letters. And you need to be prepared to sue if they are magically reinstated, because here's the other thing about bad actors. They tend to have people that they pay off, and they're able to get reinstated when they absolutely never, ever should be reinstated. And so that frustrates a lot of our clients, because we go through the trouble, we get somebody taken off a listing who's selling counterfeit or a knockoff, and then like they're back in a day or two. And that's so frustrating. Or what happens is maybe that seller's gone, ABC, and a day later, 123 pops up, a new seller selling the exact same thing. And it's the same seller with multiple accounts. And so you feel like you're in a constant game of whack-a-mole. And then if what you're doing is unauthorized or inauthentic, then it's a little bit different, because remember, you cannot use brand registry to enforce MAP, but you can get Amazon's aid if it's an inauthentic complaint. So again, you have to kind of identify the sellers where you're like, I don't know where they're getting their goods. And what you could do previously, now this is going to change on September 1st, but you could subpoena Amazon for the seller names. Obviously, once the names are revealed, and by the way, when you subpoena Amazon, you get everything. It's not just their name and address. You get pretty much everything Amazon has on them, multiple addresses, just like everything, phone numbers. It's detailed contact information. And then obviously, if you see people there that and you're like, hey, these guys are selling below MAP, well, now you can reach out to them, right? And you can say, look, you're violating your contract with us, or you can send them a cease and desist letter, however you want to handle it. Or you could go to, and you would insist on knowing who their distributor is, who are they buying from, and you can start to clean up your channel that way. By going back to the distributor and said, hey, you've been selling to online sellers, you're not supposed to do that. And you can enforce your contract with them and get them to stop selling to these sellers. But if you're asking people to verify where they're buying their goods and they still don't help, they don't give you invoices or anything, you can now make a complaint to Amazon, again, not through brand registry, but through the legal department, and ask for help. And you can say, look, we've tried to verify these sellers. We've reached out to them with no response, and we don't know where they're buying their goods, and they're creating a bad buyer experience, whatever makes sense for your goods, and Amazon will usually take them down. But again, the caveat is you may have to sue if they're magically reinstated, again, when they shouldn't be. So one of the tools that we developed in order to help brands was basically we tried to figure out, how do we make this easier for brands in a way that protects honest sellers? Because obviously many of our seller clients are brands, right? But of course, many of them are wholesalers or arbitrage or some other kind of seller. And we tried to figure out a way that would be fair to everyone, that would help the brands get what they need to do, but not chew up and destroy the livelihoods of honest sellers who don't deserve that. And so our brand enforcer program is approved by Amazon. They allow us to specifically send emails through the buyer-seller email platform. And we're allowed to send 3 verification requests. And if we get a response, then we know exactly who the seller is, we know who they're buying from, and we can take action on that, whether it's going to the distributor or, enforcing a contract on the seller, or whatever it is. And at this point, if they respond, we've taken no action against them whatsoever. And sometimes sellers will just say, hey, I'm just not going to sell it anymore. So they don't provide us any information, but they're not going to sell it anymore. And so in this way, we're able to clean a lot of people off a lot of unauthorized sellers off the platform very quickly for our brands, again, but without hurting, honest sellers. And, but what happens is not everyone is going to cooperate, of course. And so we do have an escalation step to an internal team at Amazon for those who do not verify. And we can go to them and say, look, we tried 3 times. We got no response. We believe their goods are inauthentic. And at that point, Amazon will take down their ASINs and they'll have to provide information. So, and then, we also offer fast retractions for those who do provide that information, right, after the escalation. So assuming that they're buying from a legitimate source, even though it may not be a source we're happy with, like they shouldn't have been buying it from that distributor, or we don't like it that they're buying it from Target, but we do sell to Target, so it's probably authentic, they get fast retractions. Because again, they're allowed to sell their product on the platform if they bought it from an authentic source. So one of the, our methodology, we help identify the sellers and their distributors for off-platform enforcement. You don't have to do test buys in this case because, the verification and their lack of response is enough. It does get rid of a lot of rogue sellers very quickly, and it's a very effective program. And so our checklist would look a little bit different because of what we do for our clients. So again, with the counterfeit knockoffs, identifying the sellers, that's going to be much easier now. And, yes, we do test buys as needed. Send the immediate cease and desist at the same time that we use brand registry to remove them. And we prepare for a possible lawsuit. Like, you do have to be prepared to enforce when you send a cease and desist. Otherwise, they'll just keep doing it. But that is your choice. Of course, that's the brand's choice. And most people, when they get the cease and desist, they just move on. They don't want trouble. And same with the unauthorized and inauthentic. They, basically our first step is to identify the sellers, and we exclude the authorized. So you can look through the list and say, oh, well, I know those guys. Okay, let's not hassle them. And so we're only working and focused on the ones we don't know who they are. And we send the complaint to Amazon for those who do not comply. And then the brands, so this is all automated, these first 3 steps that we do for our brands. And then the brands can approach the distributors off platform to, cut off those who are not authorized or violating MAP or whatever it is. And, if somebody magically gets reinstated who shouldn't have been, we can then pursue them off platform with cease and desist letters. And the final option is to sue those who don't comply. Again, rarely is a seller that stubborn. An honest seller will comply. And so if you have someone who's just that, screw you, then yeah, you do need to pursue them because they're not honest. So it just shortens the process. It allows sellers to manage hundreds to thousands of listings and all of the sellers on those listings, and not just on Amazon. Of course, we all care about Amazon. That's what we're here for. But many of you probably also sell eBay, Walmart, Amazon worldwide, Alibaba. I mean, you may sell all over the world. And what's cool about what we do is it actually works with all of these platforms, and you can manage all of your intellectual property, needs in one place with one interface and one dashboard. So we've been really pleased with the success of this program for our brands and for our clients. So we've even had clients who have gotten a notification from a brand, and they'll say, well, what is this? Is this real? And I'll be like, yes. and I'll tell them, look, if you just give them your invoice, nothing is going to happen to you. It's over. And so it's a much better program overall for sellers. And I wish that Amazon had created it, but they didn't. So that is basically the best way you have. You as a brand have to cobble together a program that covers all of your platforms, that yes, leverages some of Amazon's programs, but you also have to be proactive for yourself. And the thing is, these sellers, whether they're unauthorized or outright counterfeiters and knockoff creators, they're hurting you a lot. And when you get them out of your life, you'd be amazed at how much your sales pick up. You know, we had one client that after the first week, their sales went up 33%. And they were a high volume seller. This was a lot of money. And it was great for us because we didn't have to justify our fee for the next year. So they were amazed. And that, but that's the difference that it makes. And then you think about all that you've invested in building your brand, creating your packaging, developing your product, and the fact that someone will just come in and steal it from you, basically, is, well, it's just wrong. So anyway, I know that you guys probably have questions, and we'll get to those in just a second. I did want to say that anyone who mentions Feedvisor, if they call my company or, you know, reach out to our website or whatever, and you're interested in what I talked about, our brand enforcer, mention that you were part of the Feedvisor conference, and we'll offer $500 off the first month. So that's just for you guys. And that's it for me. So Natalie?
Thank you, Cynthia. So before we get into the Q&A, obviously operating on Amazon's marketplace is very complex, especially in a COVID economy. And for brands who are interested in learning more about preparing for Q4 and navigating Amazon's marketplace, you can download our latest report, The Digital Revolution of Retail and E-Marketplaces. And this includes data on how COVID-19 disrupted category sales across Amazon and Walmart, its impact on marketers' approach to advertising and media spend, and Feedvisor's data-backed predictions for what the new era of e-commerce will look like and how brands and retailers must adapt to succeed. So you can download the report at the link on your screen. And we'd like to dig into some questions for the Q&A, and we also have a brief poll that you should see on your screens now. As always, if you'd like to learn more about any of the ongoing initiatives we have here at Feedvisor, please connect with us.
I'll just add, as someone who's read pretty much all the white papers and reports that Feedvisor has created since 2015, they're fantastic. You know, really full of data and really actionable insights. So I always get my copy and share it with the team when one comes out.
Thank you, Cynthia. I love to hear that. So the first question we have in the Q&A, start with this small one. Can you explain the difference between unauthorized sellers and listing hijackers?
Yes. Okay. So a lot of people use those words kind of interchangeably. And basically, a listing hijacker is someone who comes to your listing and they may be selling a completely different product. It might be a knockoff. It could literally be a different kind of product. And they'll come and they'll steal some sales from you. They might disappear. They might come back. We've seen on one of our clients where they literally would pop up in the middle of the night, US time, and basically get a bunch of sales and they would disappear. It was almost hard to figure out what was going on until we were able to look at, you know, hey, who are these guys? They're like, I don't know, I've never seen them before. But they, you know, those are listing hijackers, people who come and try to take over your listing. It doesn't happen as much to brands who have claimed all their listings, but sometimes a listing hijacker will even come and change your listing, right? So if they're able to do it, they will. And so all of a sudden your listing doesn't say what it used to say, the pictures might change. Details might change. So that's kind of a listing hijacker. They're very much a bad actor, right? And if you look at someone who is selling, basically unauthorized, this is someone who the brand has not authorized to sell the product, and the brand has the right to set their distribution channels. And so in some cases, with some of our clients, they know, hey, these guys are all unauthorized, because maybe they only sell through one channel. Like they might only sell online and they only sell direct, and they don't have, a distribution channel. They don't sell wholesale or anything else. And so, that's a situation that's maybe a little different than somebody who has a big brand. I mean, let's just take, I don't know, Colgate toothpaste or something. It's a big brand. They have a lot of sellers on their listings, and they really don't have any way of knowing if these guys are truly selling Colgate or not. But they know that some of those are definitely unauthorized, right? And so they want to make sure that anybody who buys a tube of toothpaste off of their listing on Amazon is getting that tube of toothpaste that they're supposed to get. So that's a brand with a kind of a different problem, I guess is what I'm saying. Their job is to make sure that the buyer has a good experience and that they really are buying Colgate when they order Colgate. So that's, and then of course there's sellers who may buy directly from the brand or an authorized distributor, but they violate MAP and are devaluing the brand. And that's a problem for a brand because, again, because they have the entire distribution channel they have to think of, all of their retailers, all of their, other sellers. They can't have Colgate selling for $1 on Amazon and selling for $3.50 everywhere else, just, to make that up. But that's kind of what MAP is about. And so the problem is these people who might be getting the toothpaste from unauthorized, improper sources, they could be selling a genuine product, or they might be selling counterfeit. And so that's the challenge that those kind of brand sellers have, is, tracking down and making sure that it's coming from an authorized source. And if it is, but the authorized source, like the distributor, is not supposed to be selling to those sellers, then they can take it up the chain and deal with it at that level, versus abusing Amazon's brand registry to take people down.
So next question here. Our issue is unauthorized 3P sellers who are likely buying damaged or defective items from department stores. Amazon says, simply if they aren't counterfeit, then we have no recourse, except to sue the 3P seller. The problem is that we have no idea who these sellers are. They have bogus names, one disappears and another pops up. How would you address this?
Well, that is one area where our brand enforcer can be helpful, because basically, right, if you go through the quote unquote proper channels, that's the response you're going to get from Amazon. If you can't prove that they're buying, illegal goods or, inauthentic goods, if you can't really prove that, which a verification check does help. And so what I mean is, because our program allows us to do the verification check and then go to Amazon, who knows that we've done the verification check, and say, look, we've tried 3 times to reach out to them and to get, to understand where they're buying their goods. And then Amazon, through a different department, will take action. And it's not a department that sellers normally have access to, I guess. I can't really put it any other way, but it's our back door. And so then we can provide the complaint, we can provide what we did, and we know exactly what they need to see. Amazon has very specific guidelines, and in that way we can take down some of those guys. And even if they only, pop up now and again, the tool that we have will catch them one of the times when they pop up, and we'll be able to go after them. So that's generally how we do it sometimes. So yeah, there are times when trying to go through the right channels will fail. And we've noticed that I call them the notice dispute team. That's the team that's supposed to be dealing with all these infringement complaints, that they have not been performing well. And it's very frustrating, and sellers often get vague or inaccurate responses, or no response at all. Or the response they get over and over again is, you know, I can't even tell you how many different ones there are, but they're all templates. And, you know, that's very frustrating, because you know you have a bad actor on your account and Amazon's not helping. So that's one of the reasons we created the tool that we did, was to help sellers to be able to go after more of these bad actors, even if they can't use brand registry to do it.
Next question here. In the past, without contact information listed for sellers, the only way for us to contact them was via Amazon's platform contact. These were simple cease and desist correspondences that the reseller was not authorized. So are you suggesting, with the new transparency addresses listed on the seller profiles, that we now do not contact these folks via the Amazon contact tool?
I would caution you, because without permission, you're not allowed to send correspondence to sellers, right? The buyer-seller platform is for, you know, business transactions only, right? But sales between buyers and sellers, and, you know, track sales support and track transactions like that. And so here's the thing: if that seller turns you in and says, hey, they're using the buyer-seller platform improperly, it can bounce back on you, and Amazon will take away your ability to do it altogether. So we don't suggest doing that. The platform is not really supposed to be used for cease and desist letters. I know that people do use it. That's why it was so important to us that our tool, that we do have Amazon's permission, because we don't ever want that to happen to any of our clients, where Amazon comes after them for violating the terms of service for using the platform. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you want to do it the right way, the Amazon way, yes, I would go out to the individual seller's, you know, seller page, grab the address and name, and go after them that way, and send them a cease and desist in the mail, which, believe me, will get their attention. Well, you know, a lot of sellers just ignore what comes through the buyer-seller platform, or think, oh, it's spam, or I don't have to do anything and they can't catch me. Well, that's not true anymore.
Next question. Is someone who buys liquidation or returns allowed to resell on Amazon?
Yes, but you're not allowed to resell as new. And that, because in those cases, the goods are considered used. And especially liquidation causes so many problems, because, again, a lot of times the goods that you're selling are expired. And, you know, while food, you know, and supplements is obvious, there's a lot of things that have expiration dates on it that you don't even think about. I once, years ago, when I was selling, I sold a toy that had like a little food packet inside it, and I wasn't thinking about it. You know, I just sold it as a toy, right? And then I had a buyer complaint because when she, you know, her daughter opened it, the food was expired, and she was pissed off. And I went and bought her some more food and sent it to her. But the thing is, that's probably one of the biggest problems with liquidation. And the other problem with liquidation is there's no way most of the time to track the product all the way back to the brand. So a lot of liquidation, it might be, you know, they might be out collecting overstocks or whatever, things that haven't sold from a dozen different stores, and then selling it in a big box. And so you really don't know where those goods came from. You know, it's some kind of retail store, you know, maybe it was sold through Walgreens, but you might have in your box stuff that was sold from Walgreens, from Target, from all these different places, and there's no way for you to trace it back to the brand. So, you know, Amazon will tell you that you can sell it but you can't sell it as new because they don't consider it new. And so that eliminates a lot of products right there, right? Because you can't sell used food. And they will also tell you that if they ever are required to ask for authenticity proof and you don't have it, then you can't sell that product anymore. It happens enough times, they'll take down your account. So I find, I know I have clients who are liquidators. I've worked with a lot of liquidators, and they have a tough time selling on Amazon for the long term because of Amazon's requirements for authenticity, and that they won't accept, you know, I bought this, you know, truckload from liquidator X, right? And can you sell liquidation on the platform? Yes. It's just a riskier model than buying direct or wholesale. People need to know that.
All right, we have time for one more question. Can you clarify when it is okay to use brand registry for a takedown?
Yes, so it is absolutely okay to do a takedown if someone is obviously infringing on your trademark. This is the definition of counterfeit, where they're actually using your trademark for their purpose. And it doesn't even have to be on your listings. You might see it anywhere on the platform where they've kind of faked your logo, but it's not your product. That's always allowed, and you can do the takedown there. If they're misusing your trademark, your copyright, again, maybe they've stolen copy directly from your listing and put it on theirs. We've seen a lot of cases of that. You can take them down for copyright infringement. And that's basically it right now. Amazon has really narrowed what takedowns they allow. And, and of course for patent infringements, you can do that, whether it's utility or design patent, but you just can't do it through the brand registry tool. You have to provide the information to brand registry and they do the takedown. And so what you're providing them is the patent and, you know, as proof of your claim, and you sign a document that says, I swear under penalty of perjury, blah, blah, blah. And, but those are all cases where it is, you know, absolutely okay to do it through the platform. And what you're doing is legal, you know, even if the seller's mad about it, they don't have a case. Now they would, I guess, have a case if you were, and I have seen this with bad actors, if the design patent or utility patent had nothing to do with the actual takedown. And we've seen people do that. They've claimed they had a patent and they took down a bunch of competitors, and the patent that they gave Amazon had nothing to do with the products that they were taking down. Like, it was just, they fished a patent out of their hat and said, we'll give this to Amazon because we know Amazon doesn't read these, which is true, and we'll take down a bunch of people that we're competing against. So that is a clear violation of terms of service, and it was something you can get sued for. But assuming that you are in fact protecting your intellectual property, yeah, you absolutely can do that through the platform. It's just a few more steps if you're protecting a patent.
All right, well, that's about all the time we have for today. Cynthia, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. We really appreciate your time today.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the chance to talk to everybody.
And thank you to everyone who's listening in. As a reminder, we will be sending out a link to the recording later this afternoon. And for anyone whose questions we didn't have a chance to get to today, someone from our team will follow up with you shortly. So with that, please feel free to reach out if you're interested in learning more. Thanks again and enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.